We should never allow the government to decide what is acceptable speech and what is unacceptable speech. We should penalize behaviors, not opinions, and not speech. If you start trying to regulate speech, you start trying to regulate thoughts, you start trying to regulate beliefs rather than behaviors, there's no way that you're not going to abridge the constitutional rights of millions of Americans.
Don't let anyone ever tell you that this country isn't great, that somehow we need to make it great again, because this right now is the greatest country on earth.
This is your president. In the past 10 years, I have fooled all of you into believing the socialist ideology of everyone is equal. How? By making everyone believe the lie and having destroyed our nation's sovereignty. Through communism, we will all be a unified global government of acceptance by making everyone have the same thing. You won't be an American, you won't be a citizen anymore. You will be the same as your dog, your neighbors in Mexico. If all have nothing, then all will be equal. That is the purpose of socialism. You are nothing unless the government tells you who or what you are. Don't pretend you don't know what I've been doing. I brainwashed you through high-definition television. You are truly the walking dead. If I told you to give up your freedoms, you would. But it's already happened, so I don't need to keep convincing you. You all are vegetables now anyway. Oh, by the way, if you can't see that I'm the Antichrist, then there's no reason anymore to tell you what must be done next, because you'll be hunted down with the Christians and exterminated for not believing me, not accepting who I am. I'm your Messiah, your Imam Mahdi. April 23rd, 2018, I told the world, but it wasn't time yet to bring out who I am. So the conspiracy must continue against Trump until that is accomplished. The rapture must happen first. Remember always that I made narcotics legal. I made every kind accessible. I made this addicted nation a reality through suicide, overdoses, you name it. I did that. Ever wonder how I control everything you see and hear? I own the media. I have since I took over in 2009. I laugh when I see Republicans standing next to each other without a word. They can't. I control what they see, what they hear. Want truth, facts? Forget it. I am your whole world now. If life means anything today, it won't under the global system I've initiated since I became president in 2009. My legions accept whatever I tell them to do. You will too, or you'll be hunted down with the rest and exterminated. It's as simple as that. Accept and obey, or resist and die. I am your hope for tomorrow. I am your president. There is only one outcome: world domination. Either you'll accept me or be taken out. It's time to take a stand for one or the other. Me or freedom and liberty. Remember Adolf Hitler, freedom is a lie. Enslavement is acceptance.
feel compelled to make this short video today to emphasize to all of you what's at stake about America's future. You've seen me say this in several videos before, that socialism and communism are the same thing. And one thing that you do not see the Democrats say in any of their ads is their denial of what is socialism. They adhere to it, and they certainly never deny the fact that they are socialists. They never deny their attitudes or their philosophies adhere to what Barack Obama pushed for almost 9 years and still does to this day as a global dictator. And they use that whole mentality against President Trump, which is an absolute joke. But it should make you cry to see how the Socialists and the Communist Party adamantly and arrogantly stand in front of the American public and say, we don't want the Constitution, we don't want freedom anymore, we don't want anything anymore. We want to give the government the full power to manipulate and control our lives. The Communists and the Socialists hold one value, and that is the adherence to the United States entering into this global New World Order system that Obama kept saying, it's here, you have to accept it, it's the only choice that the world has. And we all converge together into this New World Order system. In some way, he kept convincing people that the United States would be happy, it would be content, it would be satisfactory to them. And so that's why so many people now are just indifferent, desensitized by the facts that come out about their agenda, how they intend to destroy our country as a nation, and adhere to this ideology that Chavez had for Venezuela, and yet you see the results of communism on nations that to this day either still exist, like Putin's Russia, Castro's Cuba, North Korea, Pyongyang. Venezuela is a bankrupt country today because of Chavez. Chavez was and always will be Obama's personal favorite as a world leader, because his intention was to bring communism to full power in that nation. And I remember only a year or so ago you saw how the nation itself was so much in poverty that people's cattle that were out in fields around the cities, the people were out there killing them because they had no food to eat, and they were just more or less butchering them so that they could get something to eat from that, because the food in the grocery stores was at 1,000,000,000% inflation. A loaf of bread was more or less the cost of your whole paycheck. And the socialists don't want people remembering what Venezuela was like, because that's what they're going to turn America into. And it was Chavez who made it a mandatory requirement that all people of Venezuela buy electric cars. And Amazon is pushing that in their ads. They're saying in the next 10 years they're acquiring and building and purchasing at least 2-3 million electric car vehicles, and that was the intent of Chavez himself for Venezuela, was that to be a communist regime and a communist nation of conformity to this lie of climate control and global warming, was that we all have to have an electric car, and then it destroys the so-called carbon footprint of pollution or the destruction of our natural resources. That all that horse crap that Dan Quayle kept pushing about global warming is a real event. He was proven a liar, and now you got Obama and the communist, socialist, Democrats saying, no, it's not a lie, it still has to be upheld because this is what communism must do. We have to convince people of a global lie, and that somehow it's all going to be so much better for everybody if we adhere to it. If we believe it and we accept it as a nation, that it's going to make things better for everybody. The ridiculousness of Obama's ideal of a utopia was that if we all have nothing, if we give all of the United States' wealth to all the other countries, third world countries, countries that have gone bankrupt because of communism, that it'll bring us all to the same level of equality around the world. And that's what Obama pushed, and he still pushes to the socialists. Obama's behind the scenes, folks, right now doing these things. You got Michelle Obama's black moon pie faced body on television all the time telling people we now face the most horrible moment in our history, because now we must say to the world, America will enter the New World Order. We will adhere to the socialist and the communist attitude that all must be equal, so therefore everything about America must be flushed, it must be destroyed in order to give it all to other nations. And therefore Obama's rhetoric and his whole plan for a global world order can come about. And the Bible tells the world that the Antichrist will have a charisma like no one's ever seen before. He will be able to convince masses of people to believe his philosophies. It says the Antichrist will destroy traditions and values. He will eliminate the concept of what is humane, of what is considerate and fair to everybody else. And that's what Obama did for 8 years. He said, my attitude of a change that you will believe in is the adherence to socialism and communism. And he will never admit that. And you see all of his people of the Democratic Party, and they all adhere to socialism, and yet at the same time they don't deny the fact that that's their whole philosophy, that's their whole ideal. And that's why, folks, if you're going to make a difference about what happens to America as far as do we survive or do we give up to the socialists, to the Communist Party, your vote is your last chance. Because if the socialists come into power, folks, the first thing they're going to do is eliminate your right to vote. They'll take away your right to liberty and freedom and anything else that our nation has always valued and held dear in our hearts. There's no such thing anymore as patriotism, because people don't want anything that had to do with what America was founded on. That our own children right now actually serve in the military. There will be a military. It'll be Obama's militant army. And what they'll do is they'll turn the armed forces in on itself. It'll make the armed forces control its people now instead of being out there fighting for freedom in other parts of the world. Because what socialism and communism is about is the control of its people and its own borders. And then all these Muslims, all these immigrant Mexicans that are coming in droves, who right now President Trump has been able to keep out. The socialists themselves are going to say, well, we're going to let them come in, but they're not going to be able to go back to Mexico because we're going to put a wall there. And the wall is going to be to keep people from getting out of America. They're going to let them come in because the more bodies they have in this country, the more they can then use them to control our gross national product, which is what the Soviet Union was about. More bodies you have, more people can do what more or less is the overall function of socialism and communism, and that is the military establishment. Keep military product in production all the time so that then they have the force to control its people with. But then the people themselves are suppressed from having anything else, and that includes free enterprise, capitalism, anything. And so then that border will become more or less the definite stop of the immigrant coming out of America to say you can't go back to Mexico now because you came here, you wanted to come here and siphon our system out. So now you're here, now you're going to be more or less human slaves to socialists and communist rhetoric. And then they're going to, of course, take away your ability to have a firearm to protect yourself. They're already going to destroy the entire infrastructure of law and order because they're saying we don't want the police anymore. In Mexico, which more or less is a socialist regime, their police are more or less militant police forces. That means they control and are controlled by the drug cartels. They are controlled by a global or national dictator who controls their healthcare system, and it manipulates their people. That's why they're all just wanting like crazy to get out of Mexico, because they know what socialism is. That's what a lot of them come here to do. They hope that they can live in peace without the drug cartels controlling them. And I tell you, I don't see why a Mexican would want to come to America when they see that this country is becoming their own nation. They ought to see that already. They ought to say, wait a minute, we don't want to come to the same country that we're trying to get out of. And I think that's why you don't see the media talking about this exodus of Mexicans coming into America anymore, because they all see they're becoming what we're trying to get away with, or get away from, out of our own country. We're trying to get into a place where we can feel free, we can feel safe. And what's the socialists and the communists saying? We're going to get rid of the military, other than it controlling you. We're going to get rid of the police who are supposed to protect and to defend and to serve the American public. There's not going to be a law enforcement anymore. It's going to be a militant, enforced, socialist, communist group of people who then will turn around and give those rights to the blacks and to the militant groups, to the drug cartels of this country, to the Muslims. They're going to say, okay, now you have the authority to go to a person's house, take their gun, arrest people who have food that go beyond a certain number of days, and then they're going to tell you if you're a Christian and you profess to be one, they will have you arrested. Don't laugh, because this is what you all want. The communists themselves want to destroy everything and anybody who stands against Obama, who stand against the communist regime, against the philosophy that in somehow or another communism is some great ideal. Also, is a socialist, he is a communist. Every ad you see on TV proves his associations with the communists and the socialists direct. Lucy McBath is a communist. She is a socialist, because every Democrat running right now in this country are socialists, and they make no bones about it. They don't deny the fact that they adhere to socialism, but they'll lie to you and say, I'm running because so-and-so in my family was killed. I'm running because I'm trying to make a difference. The difference they're talking about is we're going to bring all this to fruition. This is what's called the deep state. The blue state, the blue wave that Abrams kept talking about in the last election, is the adherence and the acceptance of communism in America. And that is what the United States faces in the next 30 days in this country. If you don't fight for your freedoms, you are saying, I don't want freedom, I don't want liberty, I don't want anything except to adhere to what Barack Obama kept lying to us about, and what they're trying to do and turning it around and using that same attitude against President Trump, saying he's evil, he's this, he's that. Come on, folks. You can't see what socialism is doing to you, then you are brain dead and you want it because you don't care about being free as an American citizen anymore. You don't care about anything. And when it's over with, if Biden becomes president, folks, whatever this nation becomes, it is your fault because you didn't do anything. And I don't feel sorry for anybody, because if you don't fight now, your chance is now going to end forever. There will never be an America again. This is going to be what I've said in all my videos. I try to make it funny, but it's in reality true. We are going to become the United Socialist States of America. When we become that, folks, the next thing that this whole continent will become is the North American Union. There is already a European Union. There is already an Asian Union. There is obviously a South American Union. So now they're going to make the United States and Canada and Mexico, it's going to become a North American Union. North American Union means that the United States as a nation and all continents around us are going to be unified into this global world order system of communism and socialism, and then everything about you and who you are and what you have is going to be null and voided. And also, by the way, your Constitution is going to be destroyed. Your voting rights will be ended. The Socialists want all this. Hillary Clinton wanted this. She said, we've been trying to get rid of the Electoral College since 2000 when her own husband was in the White House. Now the Socialists are at the level now they say they can do all these things because of Obama. Because Obama kept pushing it. This is your last chance, ladies and gentlemen. This is your last chance, your last hope for our country. This is your last chance to fight like your ancestors did, like your parents, as your grandparents did, as your great-grandparents did. The blacks are trying to say the Civil War is nothing to be proud of. The Civil War is nothing to even believe or to even remember. And yet your own family, your ancestors were in that. Maybe you're black and you say, well, I don't want to remember that. But a lot of other people were in it who lost their lives because of that. And America today says we don't want to remember those things anymore. But a lot of people's lives were lost during that war. Confederate soldiers were lost. They died. Union soldiers died. A lot of Confederates died horrible deaths in those slave camps, in those prisoner of war camps after the end of the Civil War. The blacks don't tell you any of that. The Northerners will never bring it up because they don't want people remembering how much human tragedy there was in the Civil War, how much tragedy there was during the Korean War, the Vietnam War. America wants to look at this whole thing and say, this is just a bad memory in our history, and we should just look beyond that and at the future. There won't be a future. Posterity will say America died when we gave up on President Trump, when we gave up on our freedoms. That is going to be the posterity of America, that it died in 2020 because we gave in to a fart of an ass like Joe Biden and that black Condoleezza Rice or the Mahana Harris, whatever her name is. You give in to people like that, you're saying we don't want freedom anymore, we don't want anything. We want to be subjugated, we want to be controlled. Folks, the reason they're not talking about coronavirus to the levels where it was really a dangerous disease is because I think the socialists are going to come out and say the whole thing was a farce because we created it. We brought it to America to kill off everybody who was a supporter of Trump. We wanted to eliminate the populations of the world to get it to the levels of the Illuminati's mentality of 500 million people can only live, can only exist. And that's what the reason really for the coronavirus was about. Eliminate humanity to the level where they think this is where it needs to be because then we can control everybody. That is reality for this nation, for the world we live in today. Communists are about to pounce on what was America and everything you knew and everything about who you are as a person, as an individual, as a nation. They are going to squash it, they're going to crunch it down like a beer can. And then when it's over with, folks, there won't be anything left of this nation. And then the next thing you're going to hear about is Obama's FEMA camps are now in full operation, and they're going to start putting everybody in those who either are Christians, people who adhere to wanting freedom and liberty. They're going to hunt you down too, and they're going to say, you can't believe that anymore. You can't live that way anymore. You can't have a gun anymore. You can't have anything unless the government tells you what you can have. That's why you got to fight, folks, because this is your last chance. America is about to go under. We're about to have a big obituary on the world scene. It's going to say, rest in peace, America. It's going to say the United States is dead. The United States is now gone. And you can thank Pelosi, you can thank Schumer, you can thank Schiff, Nader, Mitt Romney, you can thank Maxine Waters, you can thank Bernie Sanders, you can thank Elizabeth Warren, you can thank Barack Hussein Obama, the Antichrist, and now the lies are about to become fact.
أهلاً، أنا عمران دقنيش. لقد رأيتني في سيارة الإسعاف في حلب. عندما أطاحت الطيارات الجوية بمنزل عائلتي. أنا بأمان الآن. أردت أن أجيب على تساؤل شخص ما حول مشاعري عن نفسي وعن عائلتي عن طريق قول أنا بخير وأنا أحبك أيضا يا ديفيد.
I'd like to talk with you about a special little boy who lives in Aleppo, Syria. His name is Amran Daknish. He and his family were injured during airstrikes in Aleppo during the summer of 2016. Everyone in the world saw him, and even the presidential candidates discussed him.
The heartbreaking video of a 5-year-old Syrian boy named Amran sitting in an ambulance after being pulled from the rubble after an airstrike in Aleppo focused the world's attention on the horrors of the war in Syria, with 136 million views on Facebook alone. But there are much worse images coming out of Aleppo every day now, where in the past few weeks alone, 400 people have been killed, at least 100 of them children. Just days ago, the State Department called for a war crimes investigation of the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad and its ally, Russia, for their bombardment of Aleppo.
That picture of that little 4-year-old boy in Aleppo with the blood coming down his face while he sat in an ambulance is haunting.
I am asking you to remember him and his family. They should never have had to endure this. No one should. He is safe today with his family, but millions of other children are still suffering in the world today. Remember Amran. Remember his people. Remember Aleppo.
مرحبا، اسمي عمران دقنيش. كان عمري 3 سنين ونص لما ضربوا الغارات الجوية الروسية على حلب. أكيد شفتوني هديك الليلة في سيارة الإسعاف يوم 17/8/2016، واليوم أنا أفضل بكتير. أنا صورت هذا الفيديو عشان أسأل عيلتي شو اسم أمي. إذا ممكن أي شخص يساعدني أنا بقدره كتير. من فضلكم أروني شخص أحضنه زي أبويا محمد الخير، أبو علي، أخواتي رؤى وتقي وعبد الله. أنا لسه ما بعرف اسم أمي، رجاء ساعدوني في معرفته. أحب كل من يهتم بي وما زال يريد أن يعرف كيف هي عائلتي في حلب. لن أنسى أبدا لطفكم. مع السلامة.